I have your attention, please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Bass in your face. Bass in your face.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Hossein Mikro. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions. But not everyone uses logic. So for that reason, it is called Uncommon Sense. I also have another YouTube channel called Latina Diaspora where I discuss issues pertaining to Latinos in the United States. The link to that channel is in the description. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, the subscriber mode has been enabled for the first 5 minutes. Meaning, if you're not a subscriber and if you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you need to have been subscribed for at least for 5 minutes. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who've already subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been a supporter from the very beginning or just recently joined, I really appreciate your love and continued support. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who allow me to enter into your devices, though also those who follow me on social media, and those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have not done so already, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notification to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. Now, as you can see by the thumbnail, tonight's topic is going to be do not let the past govern your life. Now, why am I discussing this topic? First of all, it's a topic I have discussed before, but basically what I'm going to be discussing is the drop of letting past events influence your present and your future to the extent that you're unable to move on. We have seen this many times, not just here on social media, but in our circles. People are so affected by what happened in the past that they're not able to move on. Now, before we get into the main topic, we're going to have another episode of In My Words. Now, late last night, my girlfriend Gigi had her latest live on. When discussing issues with basically they were reacting to a live that YouTube creator called Kim123 did, which basically with his anti-American rhetoric and his ongoing feud regarding mixed people. Now, I have said this before, and I'm going to say it again. You can say whatever you wish. You can produce whatever content that you wish. Okay, that's perfectly fine. But apparently, they had a guest that was apparently a disciple of King 123, arguing his issues regarding mixed people and things like that. And it got a little feisty towards in the middle of the string. And one of the issues that are among the mixed community is that when you have certain individuals who want to separate themselves and create their own little conclave, so to speak, whether it be mulattoes, whether it be the Golden Spear, whether it be MGMs, light skinned people, I mean, what have you. If you want to separate yourself from the rest of that community, you're free to do so. The problem is when you separate yourself from other members of the mixed community, you you weaken your numbers. Okay. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to the mixed community, it's already a niche community is concerned. Okay. And yes, there are strength in numbers. Now you can maintain your own individuality and yet same time not separate yourself from other like-minded people. We have that in the Latino community where we have uh, Latinos who separate themselves because they want to focus on one aspect of their culture, which is basically from Spain. You can do that. The problem is you're just weakening numbers. One thing we all have to bear in mind that when it comes to Latinos, there are differences. Okay, there are differences when it comes to Latinos that were born and raised from the Caribbean because they have their own unique culture and history and then their own nuances as far as language and things are concerned. And then you have Latinos from Central America, basically Mexico, um, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, Costa Rica, and Panama. And then you have Latinos from South America. So while there are things that unite us, which is language, which is Spanish, also our respective cultures are heavily largely influenced by the agnostic or atheist. I mean, there is a strong Catholic influence, nevertheless. There's nothing wrong with maintaining your own individuality. However, there are times and there are occasions where there's strength in numbers, particularly when it comes to issues that's similar, whether you be a Latino from the Caribbean, or whether it be a Latino from Central America, or a Latino from South America, namely Spain or Portugal. And then there was a lot of discussion regarding the term mulatto. Now, for many people, the term mulatto is a very controversial term um, due to the history involved. You know, I mean, I did address this last year regarding mulattoes, the term mulatto. And the way I look at it is this: I don't look at it as a negative term. I don't look at it as a positive term. I look at it as a description, okay, which is basically someone who's the offspring of a white parent and a black parent. That's all it is. It's like, and I use the analogy of being left-handed or having blue eyes. You cannot control the fact that you have blue eyes. You cannot control the fact that you're left-handed. At the same time, you cannot control the fact that you are mulatto. People get hung up with the term because it is an old term. Um, I look at it this way: if you wish to address yourself as mulatto, that's fine. If you wish to address yourself as mixed, that's fine. If you wish to address yourself as an MGN, that's fine. If you want to address yourself as a member of the Goldenspiel, that's fine. Whatever you wish to address yourself, that's perfectly fine with me, as long as it make it perfectly clear. What gets to be a little crazy is that when you have certain mixed groups, mixed people that try to claim superiority uh, based on their phenotype or based on who their parents are. It gets a little bit crazy and it gets a little bit weird. Okay, it's kind of like Latinos from the Caribbean claim superiority over the Latinos residing in Central America or South America. That's not gonna go well, and it's a waste of time. The final thing I'm going to be talking about, and this is something that I have discussed previously, is regarding the topic of unforgiveness. And this one, it's gonna be bilingual. El último asunto, yo voy a hablar sobre el tema que es incapacitar para perdonar. Now, the problem with unforgiveness is people have a misconception regarding what forgiveness is. El problema es que hay personas que no entienden el término que es para perdonar. Now, forgiveness does not mean okaying what the person did. Also, it does not mean returning to full fellowship either. All it means is that you are not going to allow yourself to be governed by what the person did in the past, no matter how hurtful it was. El problema con respecto del perdonar, no debe decir que no está de acuerdo con el daño que fue, que no está permitiendo que el daño, que sea por palabra, acción o gestos, siga afectando su vida. And the fact of the matter is, you can forgive someone and not have anything to do with the person. Okay. And when you are not able to forgive someone, basically, first of all, you're not doing that person any harm. What you're doing is you're harming yourself. El problema es que cuando se trata del perdonar, no está haciendo ningún daño contra la persona que han hecho el daño, está haciendo daño a su propia persona. And there's also biblical precedent that talks about that if you do not forgive others of the harm that they did, God in no way is going to forgive you. Si no estás capaz de perdonar a aquellos que han hecho daño contra ti, no se puede pedir perdón de parte de Dios. Now, some of you are going to say, well, you don't know what the person did. The person really hurt me. The person, the person betrayed me. The person made me go through suffering. And you're absolutely right. I do not know and I do not understand. Okay. What I do know is this. You're not doing the person any harm by holding on to unforgiveness. No está haciendo ningún daño contra la persona si no es capaz para perdonar. when you can forgive but not have anything to do with the person. Se puede perdonar pero no tener nada adelante con la persona. You can forgive, not have anything to the person do with the person, and not wish the person any harm. Se puede perdonar a la persona y no tener ningún contacto con la persona y no vivir mal. So the next time that you say the Lord's Prayer, be mindful of the part that says, Lord, forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Because basically, what you're asking God to do is to grant you the same level of forgiveness that you give others. Cuando está rezando el Padre Nuestro y llega el momento que dice que perdona ofensa que nos ofenden contra nosotros. Está pidiendo que el Dios le gane el mismo nivel de perdonar al que hace con otra persona. So just please bear that in mind. Now, there's a difference when you are struggling to forgive compared to not being able to forgive. Que hay una diferencia cuando estás luchando para perdonar en vez de no perdonar. Okay. God sees that, and God will give you the grace to forgive if you're honest and and that you confess that you are struggling. Dios le ayudará para perdonar si está sincero y se confiesa que es así difícil para perdonar. So please bear that in mind. And topic. Now, before I continue, let me just state for the record that the link to join the panel has been pinned. Should anyone wishes to hit that link and opine regarding the topic in hand, they can do so. However, if I never seen you before, if I never heard from you before, I will insist that you come up in the backstage to make sure that no one, and I repeat, no one tries to flash any adult-related content, okay, which will cause the people of YouTube to take down the stream. Now, once I see that you're not going to try that, then I will allow you on the panel. Okay. Now, one of the problems that many people face is that they've been affected by something that people did in the past. It could be traumatic, it could be painful, or it could be trivial. And what it does is, instead of dealing with that situation, it allows to fester to the point where that person is constantly thinking about the act. And that act is influencing in a negative way how their life progresses. And I'm going to give you an example, and I'm not going to mention any names. First of all, it's not necessary. But I know of an individual that had an issue with someone, okay, that happened 7 years ago. Now, instead of doing the mature thing and talking to this person aside, taking this person aside and express their displeasure and express orally what was the thing that the person did or allegedly did that offended. Chose not to address it, and what it done, it affected the person in such a way that it caused them to have a negative viewpoint regarding the other person. And what it does, it created a great deal of mistrust that did not need to exist had that person decided to be um, transparent and discussing what this person did or allegedly did that caused mistrust. There's one thing that been said before, and I think it was, I'm not sure, but I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, honesty is the best policy. And what that means is if you are aware of something that a person did that you did not like, that it bothered you, that it caused you, that affected you in some way, it is best to just have a private discussion, explain what the person did or what the person perceived that they did and how it affected them. And then it's up to the two of them to see whether or not they are able to be reconciled, resolve their issues, and just move forward. Now, sometimes there are people who are able to um, discuss their differences and able to be reconciled and then move on. There are other cases that some people, for whatever reason, are not capable of doing that. So what's the best thing is just go your separate ways, part company, okay, and just simply let go of whatever the person did or allegedly did. Okay. Because the problem is when you do not address something with an individual, what it does, it begins to fester. And what it also does, it also clouds your reasoning. And what it also does, it creates uh, mistrust. Other situation that happened last week. Okay, when another person made allegations against another person, doubting their trustworthiness and bringing accusations without producing receipts. So what I did was I took the person that received the information, or misinformation as I like to call it, and I had a brief discussion, which I expressed my point of view, which was I don't think what the accusation was made was valid, but I suggested that that person had a discussion with the person that was being accused, so that person can get a clear understanding of what being discussed. Of course, the person found out about it, and it is sad and it's also petty when people make accusations and they don't bother to confront the person directly and bring about their evidence. Because when you make an accusation, whatever it is, you have two choices: produce your evidence to substantiate your hypothesis, or recant and admit you have no evidence and admit you made a mistake. Okay. Some people, for whatever reason, are incapable of doing that because with some people, accountability is like kryptonite. That's the sad reality. Okay. Now I've seen friendships deteriorate because people won't let go of something that happened in the past. I've seen friendships end because of things that happened in the past, and also there's also marriages that have been affected because something that happened and the person refused to let it go. In fact, just before um, I went live, I saw this Christian uh, video uh, regarding a woman that hold a grudge against her husband for 40 years due to infidelity. Now, unfortunately, what happened was the husband had an affair. The wife found out. The husband confessed. The husband asked the wife to forgive for forgiveness. And then after the affair, remained faithful. Okay. Unfortunately, the wife said that she forgave, but she never forgave. But kept reminding the husband every time they had an argument, every time they had a disagreement, or whatever, kept reminding him regarding his act of infidelity and withhold affection. And this went on for 40 years until she departed. And what happened was, of course, she stood before God, and of course, saw everything. God saw the fact that uh, even though she stayed in the marriage, but never actually forgave the husband for his infidelity, and as a result, the woman was condemned to spend eternity away from God's presence. Why? Because she would not forgive. Now, as far as Christianity is concerned, forgiveness is a huge part. And the fact of the matter is, how can you ask God to forgive you if you're not willing to forgive others? Okay. And the fact of the matter is, when you die without forgiving others of what they did, you can spend eternity away from God's presence forever. So you can spend your whole lifetime uh, going through attending church, reading your Bible, interceding for others, serving God, being faithful to God in service and things of that nature. However, if you choose not to forgive, the consequences is that God will not forgive you and you will spend eternity away from God's presence. And of course, some of you are going to say, well, you don't know what that person did. That person hurt me, that person betrayed me, that person made me suffer. And you're absolutely right. Okay. But one thing to bear in mind, when you harbor unforgiveness, you're not doing anything to harm that person. What you're doing is you're harming yourself, you're affecting your wealth, your health, okay? Your spiritual health will become infected. And remember what I've said before, that in order to be well, completely well, you have to be well physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. When you're not well in one area, it's going to affect the other three areas. When you are not well spiritually, it's going to affect your mental well being. It's going to affect your emotional well being. And it's going to affect your physical well being. Which brings up, unfortunately, there's certain people who are unable to move on over past mistakes. And this is something that we all struggle with, and I have struggled with it as well. And I'm going to share with you a personal situation, my own personal situation. There was someone that I love and I care about very deeply, and she hurt me and she betrayed me in a terrible way. She led me to believe that we have something romantic, and what happened was she married someone else. That caused me to go through a lot of hurt. I went through depression. I thought about deleting myself, and it left a huge emotional, emotional and spiritual scar. It is something that I struggled with for many years until I was able to just forgive and let go. I did not okay the act, but I realized that what about me withholding forgiveness, I'm not doing the person any harm. All I'm doing is harming myself. It's kind of like drinking poison with the belief that you're going to harm the other person. What you're doing is you're harming yourself. And that could and that inability to to forgive could have cost me eternity from being separate from God, because the Bible teaches us, if we do not forgive others of their transgressions, God is not going to forgive us. Now it took me a long time, and I it took me a long time to heal, to the point that I was able to forgive. I'm going to cite another example. Now, I have discussed this before, and this has to do with my ex wife. Um, some of you know that I was married, and unfortunately, the marriage did not last due to multiple issues, which I did try to address, but my ex wife was not okay. How I was not prepared to take accountability for her actions and things of that nature. And after a while, it gotten so toxic that I decided, you know what? Let's decide. We got to. It ended up in divorce, and it was so toxic that for 10 years, I had no contact with my ex-wife. And now, about a year or so ago, Um, my ex sister-in-law DM me and asked me to have a discussion with my ex-wife. My ex-wife tried to DM me. I was just ignoring it because for a long time I was in no condition. I was not in the frame of mind to have any discussions because one of the things I learned, I was taught, if you don't got something positive to say about a person, don't say anything to that person at all. So one day I decided, you know what? Let me hear what she had to say. So she asked for my forgiveness regarding her part about how the marriage ended up in the divorce, and she finally admitted that I was a good husband, which I like to think I was. Um, and I said, you know what? I don't bear a grudge. We we both did things to cause the marriage to end. So I took accountability for my part. She took accountability for her part and just kept them moving. Um, of course, my siblings, um, they don't have any love loss towards my ex-wife um due to her actions, and some of her actions after we had a discussion were questionable, say the least. I'm not going to get into details because that'll be like exposing myself to my private life, and I already have people that were waiting to um, say whatever they wish. I'm not going to give them any more ammunition, but let's just say her conduct at times had been questionable. Now, is it now? I'm willing to give people an opportunity, um, to reform and things of that nature, and see whether or not whether they change their conduct. However, I'm also at the point where when if I see people that are not willing to uh, change their conduct and they're going to continue to be toxic, I have no problem of not granting them any access either. Because when everything is said and done, I have to be mindful, and I have to be mindful of the fact that I'm going to uh, insist that boundaries be respected. I'm going to insist that people conduct themselves in a mature way. And if people decide to not to respect my boundaries, then guess what? You are no longer be granted access and you will be blocked. I have no problem blocking people or not granting access to people who are toxic. It does not mean that I harbor any ill will. It does not mean I'm not going to pray for them. What it does mean is that I'm going to have my boundaries. Either respect my boundaries or you're going to lose the privilege of having contact with me. Okay, let me just check and see. My apologies. This is every now and then I do have to check and see is there anyone uh, watching from Instagram, because unfortunately I have the habit of just rambling, and not even bother to check. Now, before I end this, I'm going to state while you should not let the past govern your life to the extent that you're unable to move forward. You can learn from your mistakes. You can learn from your past, and then by learning from the mistakes you made, um, whenever you have situations, similar situations that happen in the future, you'll be more properly prepared to deal with it, and you'll be able to deal with it in situations where it's not going to cause you to go through a lot of stress and what have you. Now, in dealing with some of the things I have learned lessons. Okay, um, when it comes to romantic relationships, um, make sure that I do a more thorough job of vetting and making sure that whoever I am romantically involved with or wish to be romantically involved with are people that have similar values, people that are going to respect my boundaries. People are going to respect me as an individual, and they're going to respect who I am. Also, I also learned that when it comes to making decisions, make sure that I think about decisions carefully, analyzing, and think not think emotionally. So I have learned to be more rational, to think about the situation, think about the whole picture, so to speak, and act accordingly. Okay. So there's a difference where I learn from the past, from past mistakes, and letting myself be governed by past events that I'm unable to move forward. And unfortunately, um, we see people today who are unable to move forward uh, due to things that happened in the past. So it's I've learned through trial and error. And believe me, in my 63 years of life, I have made some serious mistakes. And I made some silly mistakes. But what I have tried to do is learn from them so I will be a better person, that the next time that I am faced with similar situations, I will act in a more mature, responsible, and that's called being an adult. That's also being called acting responsibly. So let me just summarize. Things will happen, negative things will happen, um, things that's gonna cause trauma, and of course, the temptation is to dwell on it, continue to dwell on it, and let your vision, let your future be determined on what happened in the past. However, what you can do and what you should do is not let past hurts govern your life so much that you're not able to move on. What you do is you analyze your mistakes, see what you did wrong, and then the next time you remember those things, so that the next time that you're faced with similar situations, you are able to act in a more clear and more responsible way. Now, I see no one is going to join me, so I'm going to start to wrap this up. Okay. Now, tomorrow night, I was going to go out. Um, I'm not going to do a lot not live on my other channel. That will be done next week. I will go live on Wednesday at 10:45 p.m. with another episode of Open Discussion. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with what happens in open discussion, I will share my views regarding several topics. Of course, the audience will have an opportunity to opine. Also, they will have an opportunity to suggest certain topics of which I will do my best to talk about. Now, if it is something that I do not have a great deal of knowledge, I will be transparent and admit so. Also, there's certain topics where I will not discuss because I just don't care to discuss those topics. Okay. Um, Now, of course, next week I'll go back to my regular schedule where I will do three lives on my main channel and one live on my other channel, which is Latina Diaspora. And of course, one of the top lives would be a Christian oriented topic. I'm going to try to see if I can come up with different topics. I'm going to try to see if I can um, maybe do a better job regarding my thumbnail and things of that nature. Try to create attention, create more interest. But in any case, those of you who are going to watch this on the playback, you're more than welcome to leave whatever comments that you wish. Just try to keep it respectable. And if you have not done so, I'm going to ask you to please consider subscribing to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything, okay? And when should you do subscribe, make sure that you set the set settings on all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. As you can see here, I create short videos every single day, twice a day. And of course, they're basically prayers or basically I got positive motivated message because this is not just my platform, it's also my pulpit as well. So um, my mission is that people will be educated and blessed by my content. And of course, I'm going to close the same way that I always close. We must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged because and massive insanity. And of course, whatever we say and do, we should do to the glory of God. So, to my fellow New Yorkers, please watch your step um, because those streets could be still be slippery with snow or ice and what have you. And please continue to look into the elderly, those elderly people, and see if they need anything. And if you can help help shovel the snow, the sidewalks, or make it clean, I'm sure they would appreciate it. And with that being said, I'm going to wish all of you a very pleasant good night. Stay blessed. Take care and peace.